And they were absolutely unapologetic about it. They were like, well, that's just how it goes, bro. Maybe if you did something good with your website, this wouldn't be happening right now. It was nothing to do with that. It was just the zeitgeist at the time was, let's be as fucking lazy because we want to browse more. I mean, that's all it is. It's fast food browsing. That's all it is. It's not a big community. It's got no societal value beyond that, right? But everyone treats it like it's super important. So I think one of the things that annoys me the most is that nobody ever really recognized what Reddit did in the first place, which was to crush conventional websites and, like, say, create this culture of, I'm not going to click on your homepage because if you ain't on Reddit, you ain't shit. And I think that's a very important thing to recognize, certainly at this juncture in the debate, that it became necessary to game Reddit because Reddit had, tailored to that laziness inherent in a lot of people who browse the internet.
I mean, it's the fastest way. It's the fastest way to get exposure and get.
It is, but that's been technology has been trending that way for the past 200 or 300 years. I mean, or for the past, how long ago was it when, the fucking printing press was invented? We've always been trending towards this, You say that people are lazy because they go to Reddit and they don't go to individual websites. People that write newspapers or magazines would say you're lazy because you go to individual websites, buy a magazine or a newspaper. People that just read the newspaper or magazine, people that write books would say, oh, you're lazy because you don't get all your information. But, this could go on and on. You're lazy because you watch TV instead of listening to radio. We've always been kind of trending towards, a more centralized, easier to consume, easier to digest. As psychologists have figured more about how to trick people into getting to watch shit and click shit. This has always been the progression of things, And every single time it's happened, the people before have said fuck, TV's killing radio. This is fucking bullshit. Radio is so much better. Or movies are killing books. Books are so much better. This has always been happening. This is not a new thing.
And I am not disputing it, but I think you're absolutely right. That is the natural progression of things. I don't think it means we necessarily need to embrace that change as positive, because I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. And I think a lot of the problems that face people who create worthwhile content, I'm not talking about myself, that is indicative of the fundamental problems we've got with Reddit, which isn't to say either the absolute rank hypocrisy in so many of their arguments. I think perhaps the one that annoys me the most is, okay, so what we do is we ban users from Reddit for manipulating the upvote system, right? We'll ban them for life without question. We'll even go so far as to prevent any content by that person being seen again. But we have no impulse to do anything about downvote brigading. Now, if you care about Reddit's front page or a subreddit's front page being an unmolested landscape, a accurate portrayal of what people like and what people enjoy, then you should care about downvotes just as much as upvotes. How coincidental it is then that there is no equivalent downvote service from Reddit and it is allowed to go on. There are many content creators that know that they have people who just bookmark their page, and as soon as they submit something, they're going to get those 10 downvotes straight away because it's very easy to generate obsessive internet haters. I can't think of one notable case where Reddit staff have intervened and said, we noticed there was a downvote brigade. I mean, shit Reddit says. That is a board dedicated to downvoting people, which is against Reddit rules, and it's tolerated because it puts some fluffy bullshit at the end saying we would never at all downvote people, which is patently untrue.
Yeah, but I mean, all of the side subreddits like the subreddit drama, Reddit circle broke, there are Reddit best of. There are tons of other brigade subreddits that are both upvote and downvote. They say they're not supposed to. They get shouted out for it. They put it in their things. Reddit has done some things to alleviate the problems. They've got when you link to an external Reddit now, it's nl.reddit, so you have to actually go to the actual page. You got to change the prefix or whatever in order to get there. I mean, I'm a little bit uncomfortable when we start getting to the idea that Reddit is pushing some mastermind agenda to fuck over content creators. I don't think that's necessary.
No, I'm not saying they're pushing a mastermind agenda to fuck over content creators. What they're doing is they're pushing a mastermind agenda to make you, if you use Reddit, you have to become a Redditor. You can't just submit what you want and pick and choose. If you want to submit content, you've got to submit 9 other links. Well, why do you have to do that? Well, of course, that gets them closer to the master plan, as you put it, of having as much content on the web, none of which Reddit create, by the way, on their website. And I think that's
okay. To explain that rule, because that's not necessarily a negative thing. The idea is just, but the idea behind that rule is so that you don't just walk into a community and link spam the fuck out of them to get your content and just use it as a promotional vehicle and never participate in the community. That's the idea behind the rule. So you're supposed to participate in a community before throwing content on it, so that you're not just profiting off the community without contributing to the discussion. That's the rationale behind that rule.
Cody, you want to say something?
I totally understand.
I think that's really important what Destiny just said there, because I mean, really, what we're talking about, we're really talking about people using Reddit as part of their marketing strategy, and they're not paying Reddit, right? This isn't a TV-based ad campaign where they would pay tens of thousands of dollars per week to advertise it. They're not advertising on the web. They're using Reddit itself for free advertising. And that was the same case we always had on Team Liquid, where you can come and advertise your stuff, but you need to be engaged in the community, and I think that's totally fair. But to suggest that there's some nefarious Reddit, they want you to be engaged. Well, of course they do, because otherwise it's just it becomes what was that fucking dig.com? Remember what that became?
Yeah, exactly.
It became garbage.
But that's my point. That Reddit is a business. The way people talk about Reddit, it's like they've been force-fed this fucking Kool-Aid laced with serotonin enhancers and God knows what else. They all talk this hippy-dippy bullshit. The idea that you can homogenize a bunch of sub-forums, all representing very diverse groups, into one community is in itself laughable. Yet they tried to do it. Now, what Reddit is about... my point was why Reddit takes such a stern stance against content creators that game Reddit and make a profit as they see it, even if the reality is different, from Reddit, is because they want you to pay. So they automatically jump you to the top. There's no principle involved. I can pay my $30 and get something that's exactly the same as if I get 40 of my friends to upvote an article in a timely fashion. So Reddit obviously don't care that much about shortcuts, do they?
What you just said is fair as a business, that if somebody's going to advertise on your platform, you'd expect them to pay for it. That's not necessarily like a bad thing. Like if somebody were to run up...
Again, I haven't said it's a bad thing. I said let's be...
Well, but you phrase it in such a way that like Reddit just wants to get money and blah, blah, blah.
What I mean, let's be transparent and honest about motivations here. I'm sick of reading these screeds about how they want to protect Reddit users from corporate interests and Reddit should be a place for free speech. It's a place for free speech unless typically it's a place for free speech when Reddit want to wash their hands of an issue, like the creep shots mod, what was it, the other subreddit, jailbait, niggers, these things that rightfully cause controversy because they're racist or borderline pedophilic. When we try and hold Reddit accountable for it, they go, free speech, bro, free speech. When it comes to you trying to hold the moderator accountable for deleting your submissions unfairly, you've submitted things well within the rules, but the moderator just doesn't like them or doesn't like you. They say moderators are free to act as they want and run their subreddits as they want. They cannot have it both ways. That's what I'm saying. It's either a business where what we're acknowledging is it's got the potential for advertisement and we don't want you to game the system because we'd much rather you pay for it and we're honest about that, or it is some free speech utopia and we can take a stern stance against people that bilk that free speech value. It's one or the other. It cannot be both.
I think that Reddit started off as like the thing where like we're gonna be the free speech utopia, and if you want to do creep shots and jailbait, like that's fine, like we can do that. But I mean, like obviously as Reddit has grown, they've seen that that's not a path for success, or that's not like a viable large marketing strategy, because eventually it will shoot themselves in the foot. They have had to backtrack a little bit on things like that, as you saw with those subreddits being banned, the 3 that you mentioned. So I mean, like Reddit has had to come to terms a little bit in their attempt, to sell ad deals to larger people or to get advertising on their site, that they can't obviously embrace that complete free speech utopia thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to see them grow like that. I mean, I don't know.
I'm gonna jump in. Yeah. So I think Reddit started as a news aggregate and never presumed that they were ever going to be a community. And I think they have done a poor job of evolving to that. And I actually would be willing to wager that this conversation is maybe more thorough and cerebral than some of the ones they've had in their conversation. But I'm actually bringing this back to something more relevant. So at On Gamers, there was a mantra that Reddit, this was actually a sentence that was said, Reddit is our business. So we're an esports we're an esports show. Let's presume that Reddit is, because I was actually surprised when they unbanned them last time. What happens when On Gamers doesn't have access to Reddit? Because I don't think we started the revolution just now. I think it was really interesting and great conversation, but I think that Reddit probably has a few more years under its belt, right?
Yeah, I mean the thing about okay, continue. Ready.
So you're a major website. 70% of your traffic is driven by Reddit. You don't have access to it by the end of the year. What do you do?
Yeah,
what
so
happens?
their strategies has all. I mean, if that's actually their mantra there, then obviously that was a huge issue, huge problem, huge strategic error on their part. Because
is it?
Well, it is because
yeah,
you can start off by doing this Reddit thing, and it's kind of like what I did right when I was starting off. But once they have traction, they're getting views, so they should be trying to convert these people into joining On Gamers, so that we can they can transition some of those user base over.
Even if you convert
they didn't
those
do that.
people,
I've never even seen any link to joining On Gamers.
Even if you convert those viewers, the percentage that you'll get is going to be way less than if you just spend all your time marketing Reddit. Look how many websites and individuals.
It doesn't matter
if
you want to just keep your business from being putting all your eggs into Reddit, then you need to start doing this type of strategy and at least spreading it out a little bit instead of like what's their traffic to their homepage? I mean, it must be laughable. Like on Gamers, right?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a chicken and egg problem where because I feel like I've been trained to not even check On Gamers because I know that those important links will appear on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a fucking bad strategy because as soon as you're put into a position like this, you're dead, right? I mean, I think even before this situation happened, most people that sort of had their finger on the pulse of the industry realized that Reddit kind of does, what Reddit wants at the admin corporate level, and that it is a business, and that if your strategy is to circumvent the rules, and that's your only, method of marketing and engaging users, it's like what's going on there? I can't believe that that's the strategy, because if you release consistently good content and you can only get it at On Gamers and you will never discover it unless you go to ongamers.com, you will start to go to ongamers.com. Will it take longer? Yes. Will you not get as many page views at the start as you would if you were just maximize?
You're making so many assumptions about the average consumer that they would even want to read articles to know if they're good content. Let's be real. The average person isn't going to read an entire article to know if it's good or not. They're going to wait for it to be posted somewhere on a news aggregate website, and even there they might not even read the article.
You have to give it a chance, Steven. You can't just you don't want to create the behavior where they are lazy and
you're not creating behavior. You're just exploiting well-known psychological phenomenon. This isn't anything new or like revolutionary. You're not Yeah, it is. Right now, do it on your website. I'll challenge everybody here to do it. If you post a story on your website and you make it more than one page long, you'll see after you post it, page 1 will be 150,000 views. Page 2 will be 20 or 30,000 views. Nobody is going to, or I say nobody, a very, very small percentage of your total audience, I would say 5% or less, is going to actually go to a website and read the entire article to know whether or not it's good. They're going to wait for the headline to show up on a news aggregate site. They're going to wait for a lot of people to hype it, and then they're going to go over there and go oh, okay, yeah, I guess I'll read it since the hive mind has said that it's good. I'm going to go read it now. That's consumer behavior. It's a well understood phenomenon. I think that trying to fight against that is only shooting yourself in the foot, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I want to clarify mantra. This wasn't written, we didn't get a huge poster printed out that said Reddit is our business. But when you looked at those numbers, that was just the things we would say. Listen, man, if this doesn't do well on Reddit, you'd put a lot of effort into a story, and then if it didn't do well on Reddit, well, you're kind of shit out of luck. And the one thing that I've learned about business is you typically, and this is really unfortunate, and this is why some companies do better than others. It's very often that you don't think about a plan B until it's a necessity. Now, the unfortunate part about this case is that the necessity is that what drove 80% of your traffic just disappeared, and that's a lot, right? So if it's 20%, I don't know, you guys trap yourself in a room for 2 hours and you figure it out, but 80% is a big deal. I mean, so like, what happens?
What's the alternative? Let's talk about the alternative.
They blow up their Facebook. They blow up their Twitter. I mean,
yeah, I mean that's the alternative. I mean that's what we're looking at, right? Where else can people advertise their content to a large group of people if their following isn't incredibly large right now?
And another issue is these things oftentimes work with one another, right? Something gets posted to Twitter, and then someone posts it to Reddit. Well, Reddit's still gone, right? What happens? Is there Vimeo.com/ongamers now? Is that this next step? Because Reddit will stop that too, I think. I think they're paying attention now. I get the impression that Reddit is paying more attention.
Oh, there's no recourse for this. There's no recourse for this. I don't even know why we would explore it. If you're banned site-wide from Reddit, I mean, there's no way to circumnavigate that.
Well, circumnavigate is to create a different venue to advertise your articles. That's
but what they're saying is, no matter what the venue you create...
No. I'm saying, like, that's not Reddit. Just exclude Reddit from the equation.
Okay, yeah. So how do we do that then? Good
that's
question.
What I'm talking
because it's the $1 million question. There's not one person in the esports industry. As I said, for all the reasons I listed earlier, with Reddit basically supplanting and replacing all of the mainstream, esports websites, and slowly but surely becoming the hub for all esports content. There's not one person I talk to. We all have the conversations. I think everybody on this call has had the conversation. I cannot wait for Reddit to die. You
don't want Reddit to die, Richard, because when Reddit dies, it's going to be replaced with something even more simplistic. In no case in all of human history has anything ever trended back towards something more complicated. Now, it doesn't happen.
Okay, now you're talking, but the difference is when Reddit does die, maybe what I can do to feather my own fucking nest is to get in on the bottom floor or whatever around next, right? And you can say, oh my God, right? But isn't that what everyone's fucking really talking about? We're not talking about an egalitarian system per se when we criticize Reddit. What we hate is that our careers, our futures are basically in the dominion of a bunch of 14-year-old moderators. And I think that's it's a terrible position for an adult to be in. And then who are the higher ups? Well, they don't want to moderate their moderators. Nobody watches the Watchmen at Reddit. You can just behave how you want on a subreddit, and that's why we all want it to fucking die. I don't think there's anything wrong in admitting that. If something better came along or a newer thing came along, I think this time we'd all be really savvy, because nobody predicted the death of the traditional websites in esports. It was one thing we didn't predict. Nobody was sat around in 2009 saying, think that Reddit's going to be popular, bro. I think we really need to get on top of this social media thing. We were too busy reeling from a global recession. So, this has really come out of left field. And I think it's a little bit unfair for Reddit to be like, okay, what we've done is we've come in with our model and shut down your businesses. And whenever you try and integrate with our model, which there's nothing necessarily immoral with you doing that, we're going to monitor it very closely and decide who can and who can't. And I think people should be rightly worried about that. I would welcome the death of Reddit. I think most content creators secretly would. I just don't think anyone's got the balls to say it.
So, James, you seem to be like really, really shocked that OnGamers' strategy was that. So what's the alternative for them?
I have no clue, dude. I don't know. It's a strategy problem. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself over and over, but who knows? I mean, they go back to Twitter and Facebook. I mean, it just seems like it's a little bit of arrogance involved, right? If you've been banned once and then your follow-up is to work around the system, like, I mean, you should be banned. Whether their content is the best in the industry, like we all agree it is, like.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
It's
definitely
really
Slasher. I don't know if it was like this kind of situation where they got banned and then Slasher got his account back, and maybe some people went up to Slasher and said, "Hey, dude, I'll post it for you. Like, you just tell me what to post." You know, what was it like that kind of thing? And then he just kind of fell into that, or did Slasher have this plan to circumvent it? Just on purpose by reaching out to people and literally giving them stuff to post.
I'm sure he sat around waiting.
Like,
I'm sure he sat around waiting for people to upload it. But again, as we've established, people won't do that. And again, I mean, the community need to, just to lash out at everybody tonight. I think the community need to accept a little bit of responsibility because everybody knows the traffic Reddit generates, and everybody knows that it can be make or break, especially for smaller publications. It shouldn't be for on-gamers. James is absolutely right. It shouldn't be. That should not be the sum total of their strategy, and I'm aghast that it almost is. But the reality is that for small publications, I can name many small blogs, it's make or break. It's like we do this and we get our click-through ads, or we shut in 3 months. And yet you try motivating a community to be proactive in uploading content to Reddit regularly. It's very, very hard. And more often than not, when you say, oh, well, look, it's found its way on Reddit. Yeah, check out that guy's posting history. And I will bet you dollars to fucking donuts that he's posted from that blog multiple times. And I would also wager there's a little bit of coercion going on. Like, we all get to know the people who regularly submit our content. We get, messages, fan mail. It does happen. Yeah. It's not all hate mail. And they say, really like your stuff. If you ever want to let me, if you want anything uploading, just let me know.
Yeah.
And these are the relationships that you end up having to forge because of how Reddit works. Nobody wants to break Reddit rules. There's just too much at stake not to. And that's the point. Reddit has a real disparity of influence to... what's the word? A real disparity of influence to kind of understanding, if you like. I hear it all the time about how we're not here to advertise for you. We're not here to promote your business. We're not here to direct traffic to your business. Well, okay, maybe all of that is true, but if you don't, you've occupied the space of what used to do those things. So what do? Do we just go home? And the idea that if content creators suddenly stopped, Reddit would be fine is equally hilarious because they don't create any content themselves. So we are in a symbiotic relationship, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. It is a ridiculous situation. And yeah, I don't get me wrong. I think everybody's a little bit at fault. Content creators, community, Reddit. But holy shit, what a dumb fucking state of affairs.
Yeah, it's been nuts, man. The amount that I think we've talked about on Reddit, and a lot of this has sort of been exacerbated by the on-gamers issues the last couple of months has been fucking insane. Because it's a website for the most part. The interaction is one way. We post our stuff to it. In some cases, some people post other stuff to it. I think it's crazy. So what do you? All right, so whoever fucked up, do they get the boot? Is that what happens, or what?
That is what's gonna happen.
At On-Gamers? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that is what's
so Slasher is getting the boot. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was asking.
No, I mean Richard.
Yeah, I'd make a very strong wager in that direction right now. I mean, On-Gamers have a tradition of throwing people under the bus. They did it to the junior writer William Turton when he used a quote that he was told was off the record. And I find it an incredible stance. Like, they don't train their juniors over there, from what I understand. And yet they are willing to put a post that's on record till the end of fucking time itself, saying that this guy did this hugely unethical thing. We're talking about a 17-year-old trainee journalist here. Now, I think On-Gamers, all the people who work there are going to be like, right, who got caught doing it? And obviously, from the past, we can safely say it's endemic. They do it collectively. I think that's not a leap on my part to suggest that. But Rod's the one who got caught. So the culture on Gamers dictates that Rod's going to get, probably...
Yeah, but is that going to help? If it's endemic, is that really going to help? Getting rid of
I think right now, I don't think they care. I think they want to get back on the Reddit teat as soon as possible. Because, yes... everybody is trying to create an alternative to Reddit. Everybody, be it a Facebook page, another social media, getting your Twitter followers up, buying likes from India, whatever it takes. Just please get me off the Reddit teat. And they're absolutely trying to do that. But this has happened too soon. They've been strategizing to do that like everybody has for some time, and they're not going to be able to do it in time. So what can we do to placate the great gods of Reddit? Perhaps a human sacrifice might do it. Rod's going to be that human sacrifice, sacrificed on the altar of Reddit wrongdoing. Rest in peace.
They tweeted
Mr.
there would
Breslow.
be a punishment. So on a you know, it's impossible to discern what that means. But they tweeted that there would be a punishment, which is like a little weird, you know. It's a weird thing.
But that's a feeler. That's a feeler if ever there was one. Like, hey
That's
guys,
a good point, actually.
we're secretly thinking about maybe, perhaps, implementing a punishment. Can we get some approval for this? Can we get a vibe about what's going to happen? Look, here's what I think, right? Whether Rod deserves to be fired or not is not for me to say. I don't fucking employ him. I think Rod, he doesn't particularly respect my work. I think that's a shame. I actually respect his contribution. I always have. And yeah, we've had a very bipolar relationship, to use his words. But he has made an absolutely telling contribution to esports journalism. And I think any publication would be lucky to have him. Now, with that said, on-gamers know that one individual is not greater than the sum of their entire parts. You know, it's not great. You know, there's people's livelihoods at stake. You know, there's the other writers, there's the junior writers, there's the editors, there's all the people who work there. And if firing Rod gets them back on a Reddit, they will absolutely do it. And be under no illusion, they'll do it in a heartbeat. And they won't care how the community react to that.
I don't think that's going to be enough to get them back. I don't think the Reddit admins would be dumb enough to see.
Yeah, I think Reddit thinks they can get
I
fucked,
can't
to be
imagine
absolutely honest. But
yeah, it would take a rebranding of the on-gamers, I think, at this point in order to get them back on.
Wow.
I think Reddit is actually probably so fucking. I think their teeth are into it enough where they would actually maybe
Ban a rebrand?
They would maybe sniff out a rebrand. I don't know.
Well, that would be pretty lame.
That would be
extremely lame of them if they did that.
The precedent would be really scary there. Like, how deep then are we going to start to go?
I mean,
in terms, I doubt they would ban a rebrand. But I mean
that's crossing the line of admins and mods, in my opinion. If somebody goes and rebrands and maybe even changes the direction of whatever they're doing, I mean, that's enough of a penalty, in my opinion.
How superficial are these rebrands, though? We just saw ESGN shit the bed, and that was a rebrand, right? So
but it's not up to them to be.
I don't want to speculate
about that.
I'm uncomfortable enough speculating about the future of an individual's employment. I think, look, I don't think a rebrand at this stage is even viable. Like, what do we know about CBSI? Right? Here's what we know about CBSI. They generally don't build stuff from the ground up. They acquire established brands, pump their resources into them, and they make them better, or they don't. They sink or swim. On Gamers was CBSI's first real punt at something completely new in a long time. Everyone remembers that it was GameSpot, also owned by CBSI. It was there that they had their own little section for esports, and then they said, let's do something esports specific. Now, Kim Rom and all the guys at On Gamers were under immense pressure to deliver realistic numbers to an American news network that would not give a fuck if this venture fails. Seriously. There's not a higher up, not a suit at CBSI that's going to, beyond the people who were involved in that tiny little section of the business, that are going to lose any sleep if On Gamers goes under. So yeah, they played it fast and they played it loose. But there's absolutely no question that CBSI would be like, hey, let's fund a rebrand. It's this or it's nothing. And this is perhaps the greatest tragedy of all of it, because, look, it may sound like I'm trying to hedge my bets a little, because I've been critical of On Gamers and critical of Reddit. But the upshot of all of this is, and I think my views are quite clear about both, esports losing On Gamers as a publication, which is looking increasingly likely at this juncture, is a terrible thing, because we will never get another American news network take a punt on esports journalism and invest like they have for a long, long time. And
CBSI had a couple of misses, too, prior to On Gamers.
Yeah.
With their ad network, so I agree.
So I mean that's the issue we've got there. That's the greater harm that's been done by this situation, and that is that literally we're going to have to wait a long, long time before anybody gets that kind of resource and support again. No one's going to see the wages again. I mean, esports journalism is criminally undervalued anyway. So On Games were the first company that really rectified that. You know, some of those guys are on good money. I don't even think they have volunteers. I think they insist on paying and salarizing even at just a tiny amount all of their staff. These are noble virtues. So they're not an entirely bad publication. They do not deserve to fade into obscurity. But that's likely what's going to happen. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for esports, I guess I'll let the Reddit crazed lunatics decide. But they certainly can't look much further than themselves for blame. That I will say.
What?
Well said.
It wasn't the Reddit community that got them banned.
No,
that's what he
because
said.
Rod broke the rules. That's what I'm still saying here. In all of this, that I don't know. I don't. The second time, the first time, forget it. Right, the first time, everybody should get a pass because everybody's out there gaming the system. Reddit know you're gaming the system. The community knows you're gaming the system. Your industry professionals know you're gaming the system. You are gaming the system. Whose Skype hasn't lit up? Upvote this from another serious content creator or whatever. You know, it happens, and we just whatever. Good. I want them to succeed. What I'm talking about is the second time around, when you are on that final warning and you know that the long game has to be to remove yourself from Reddit. I cannot believe that Rod or any other staff member would be as foolish as to do what they did. And in that instance, what I'm saying is they only have themselves to blame. If they dragged it out and not done this and tried to be a bit cleverer, a bit smarter, I think maybe 18 months from now, they build something that maybe gets them unhooked from Reddit a little bit, enough to sustain the numbers and keep the higher-ups at CBSI happy. That hasn't happened. I think it's a very glum future. I think there's going to be announcements made very soon that probably aren't going to shock many people. And I just think it's a crying shame. I think it is, because it's probably the whole sordid affair has set esports journalism back quite a distance.
Well, I mean, those are obviously the big dogs, and this is going to be, probably maybe, like you were saying, speculating that maybe a casualty there. But we haven't even talked about some of the smaller content producers like Jack Attack, right? And so I can kind of tell you, at least with my personal experience, there's, they're definitely cracking down. There's been subreddit-wide warnings going out. I know for at least StarCraft and Hearthstone. I'm sure in League of Legends too. We've seen some bans.
All the gaming
right?
subreddits.
Yeah, like Ghost of Gamers, I think is banned from League of Legends, and Jack Attack obviously was banned, and then he's reinstated now. Cable StarCraft, who does like great stuff for the community. I mean, that guy's banned, like shadow banned. So, what's the future for new content in our communities?
Well, look, here's the first thing I want to say. I find it a massive, again, Reddit-based hypocrisy that they say to. Right, it's on record. In fact, you can go and look this up yourself. I think was it I Bleed Orange, a StarCraft moderator, linked us to a post from a Reddit staff member expressly saying that moderators can exercise discretion over the 9-1 rule. That was expressly said by Reddit staff. They also say, when you try and say, look, this moderator is deleting all my work, or this moderator is being racist, or this moderator has a predilection for uploading very dubious pictures of kids in swimwear, they say, moderators can do what they like. So, okay, let's empower the moderators to make a decision about who makes a telling contribution to a subreddit or not. And that is the only consistent argument here. If you think differently, if you think Reddit should just be able to come in and say, well, moderators can run their subs as they want, but also not in a positive way, only when they're behaving like assholes will we say that, because that makes the least accountability for ourselves, then you're a moron. There has to be a consistent thoroughfare of argument with everything you say, and that is not a consistent thoroughfare. So I think the future of content is, if Reddit is serious about wanting to work with content creators like this fluff they always put out, and it's like, we want you to understand how Reddit works, and we're not trying to persecute you, and if you respect the rules, everyone can have their cake and eat it. Okay, cool. Empower the mods to make that decision, because Jack Attack only uploaded to the StarCraft 2 sub. His content was always welcome. It was always good. He is a great community member and someone who has labored tirelessly for not a lot of rewards. In fact, it's probably the only StarCraft 2 content I actually watch, because it's funny and I can get it, and I don't understand the game because I'm a fucking idiot. Right, so why is he getting a shadow ban when no one in StarCraft, the only people he interacts with, by the way, would want that? That's, again, about Reddit's bullshit and wanting to make you, A, a Redditor, and B, nudge you towards paid option, you know, for content promotion. And I think that's horseshit. It's inconsistent. You should be allowing subreddit mods to moderate as they see fit, and that has to include the 9-1 rule.
Well, I think the issue with that is, and I mean, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with what you've said, Richard, but we have to remember that the volunteer mods don't have access to any of the data that the admins do, right? So they can look at Slasher's account and immediately see, oh, this guy is logging into multiple accounts, or, you know, here's an account that has appeared in 37 different countries in the last month because it's, you know, being run through random proxies and that, okay, we can, you know, and it's only uploading on gamers articles. You know, the mods don't have access to that, and you know, probably part of the issue would be that if they did have access to that, they would have maybe too much access to that business intelligence, as, you know, as far as Reddit's business goes. I mean, that's speculation, but that system does seem to be a little bit broken. It's, you know, it's not, you know, the code base is fully open source, but the business is not fully open source.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that's irrelevant. The fact that the code base is open source is irrelevant. Giving mods the access to the same information that admins have can lead yourself open to crazy fucking abuses. Do I want moderators of the StarCraft subreddit to know my IP address or to know what other alt accounts I have? Like, if I piss off a moderator of the niggers subreddit because I like black people, am I about to have, like, mods showing up at my house? Or are they going to accidentally leak some information, you know, to, like, a Gawker's article? Like, fuck everything about that. I'm okay with the decentralization of the mods between the admins. Like, I'm okay separating those powers out. I don't think I would want individual subreddit moderators to have access to all the info that the admins do.
Right. But I mean, I agree with you, and that's the argument then for why you can't just rely on these guys to.
Oh yeah, of course. Because no
clear
subreddit
separation from the admins for banning
because
accounts.
no subreddit owner has the information available to ban somebody for using you know, alt accounts or something. Yeah, of course, I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah. So I mean the system itself has this flaw in it, right? Where you can't empower the mods because to empower them you have to give them full access to data.
But then you have to
full access to data.
But I don't know if there's necessarily a flaw in the system so much as the execution, because I don't think the system itself is bad so much. I think we're just arguing about specific rules right now, because I don't think anybody would be opposed to like admins having the ability to show up and ban people that are posting child pornography on several subreddits, right? I don't think anybody would be going, this is crazy that the admins can step in and just ban somebody posting child porn in my subreddit, you know? Nobody would be opposed to that. The problem is when the admins start enforcing site-wide rules that we don't necessarily agree with, and then you wind up in odd spots where it's like, well, we don't necessarily care for this rule, and this is our subreddit, but now you're showing up and you're banning people for it, and like it's kind of like the United States now, how like marijuana is federally banned. That's like the Reddit admins, but some states are starting to legalize it, and that's like the subreddit mods. So it would kind of be like the federal police showing up to like a legal dispensary and like arresting everybody there for it. Like it would be really weird, you know?
You've got to also point to the fact that the moderators in a lot of cases don't even know what they're talking about. Like, for example, there was a post made on the League of Legends sub not that long ago for the attention of all content creators, and it said the 9-1 ratio included comments, which it absolutely doesn't in the eyes of Reddit staff. Now, is there any recourse for someone that's been shadow banned recently because they adhered to those rules that the moderators dispensed? Probably not, because this is the fundamental problem with Reddit. There is no recourse for anything they want to do. It's a private website that postures as a public service, and I think that's the fundamental issue that we've got here.
But that's not true at all. There is recourse for what Reddit does. There was huge recourse for the jailbait thing. There was huge recourse for some of the things that Reddit does.
After a Gawker article came out, I believe, and after a journalist exposed the moderator, and it got picked up by the mainstream press. That same reporter raised it to Reddit staff prior to that, and they were disinterested and said it was a free speech issue. So when they're scandalized, they do the right thing?
That's how capitalism works. It's a private business. There shouldn't be any publicly forced recourse. It's all on PR and shit. That's how businesses work. In the same way that there was no recourse against that whatever asshole owns your company that came by apologizing for Thorn or whatever until the public made a huge deal about that. There was no recourse within the company. They weren't planning on fucking restructuring that show until there was a huge public outcry. I mean, that's how all private business works.
Well, let's talk about what are some possibilities. Because one thing, I've talked to some mods before, and we're talking about this whole content, and like I don't want to say that all these subreddit mods are bad. I mean, a lot of these subreddit mods are really nice guys, and they really understand the community and understand like the content that the community wants to see. So I've been working with the content creators, but again, the admins kind of supersede all of that and come down with global rules and stuff like that. But I have talked to some of the mods, and I know some of the things that they can do. They can actually add quite a bit of stuff to each of the subreddits. Like we were even talking about like a calendar, I believe, on the Hearthstone subreddit, which would help out with quite a bit of the content, whether you want to announce events or you want to announce shows or whatever. And they could maybe do that for even just news feeds or even whatever type of content. So how about that type of solution?
That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would actually be a lot.
It's not going to get past some of the fundamental problems, though, is it? Which, like the ratio issue, admins wanting to put you on notice. I mean, things like this. I mean, like, it'd be great if there was more, like we were saying, more features there that made it easier for people. Yes, absolutely. But I still think the fundamental issue we've got is people are going to open Reddit, look at the front page of the subs they like, and, oh, there's a calendar over there. Well, that's an extra click. Holy shit, I could just click on another website. And the whole point of me using Reddit in the first place is I'm not very click happy for whatever reason. It takes too much energy. So I don't know if it necessarily solves the problem. I think it can improve certain things. Another thing we didn't even talk about, which I'm surprised about, was, do you remember the curse taking over the Hearthstone Reddit, I think it was?
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, and this is another... Yeah, and what was the recourse for that? What was the upshot of that? Somebody basically... a moderator was gaming the entire subreddit and effectively stripping business away from everybody else and diverting business
too,
didn't it? Yeah. Well, with politics, it was completely different. Basically, a bunch of the moderators just applied an editorial standard they had no right to do, called Pulitzer Prize-winning publications like Mother Jones creators of bad journalism, and banned them because they had a liberal leaning. And this is what I mean. These subreddits are run by people that are like anybody else. They are not above the law. They're not pure and innocent. And moderators can use entire subreddits, for their own nefarious purposes, as we saw with Curse on the Hearthstone thing. And I think this is something that there's no recourse for that. Imagine how frustrating it is.
There is recourse. I mean,
what's the recourse?
What about the? I mean, some entire subdomains have been banned from Reddit for some abuses. Look at the moderator that was on Our Technology recently. That guy was pushing. Was it Our Technology where they were banning like everything related to Sony and Microsoft and only promoting the like?
Yeah,
some
they had
like
really harsh filters and they got took off the default.
And technology,
subs.
yeah, they got knocked off the default. That like pretty much is going to kill the technology subreddit. Like, I mean, there is some recourse. I wouldn't say that there's absolutely no recourse.
Well, look. Here's the thing. What I consider recourse. So, for example, if in the curse situation, Hearthstone, you've got to demonstrate. The burden of proof is on you, right? So you've got to demonstrate to a Reddit staff member who are very slow in replying because they're overwhelmed, that there's a business interest being leveraged in a Reddit, and you've got to be able to prove it. Like, for example, could I prove that Riot have a controlling influence in the League of Legends subreddit when, it's kind of abundantly clear they do. They do communicate with the moderators in advance. The moderators knew about the European Amsterdam servers going online way ahead of anybody else, and they all signed NDAs. Now, that kind of collusion, I think, is against Reddit rules. But can I prove it? Can I show them a signed NDA? No, I can't. I can't do that. So... that means then, I guess, that we've just got to tolerate it and just got to put up with shit that we know isn't right. And this is what I mean. Unfortunately, whole subreddits are open to complete abuse, depending on who's got the foresight to found them and who they bring in to moderate them. And again, this is what I mean. My recurring thought on Reddit is, do not pose as a haven of freedom of speech, some sort of socialist ideal, a content assessing meritocracy, when in actual fact you're a business and you're full of all the same sort of prejudices and bullshit that any profit-orientated venture is. And people need to be super aware and have their eyes open about how Reddit works.
All right, on that note, why don't we wrap up that topic, and let's take a quick break. It's been an hour and a half on this topic, and we'll come back and talk about Clauf. Be right back.
How long are we breaking for?
Oh god, we haven't even moved to Clauf yet? Oh, this will be sick.